All right, it's 5 o'clock. Let's get this started. We have two things on the agenda. The first is a discussion on baseball fields, and I have nothing on it.
Okay, I got some information from Jamie Winsett in regards to moving the program to the Gilbert field, okay? In other words, there's issues with the baseball field in Eveleth where it's not deemed safe. There's issues with the backstop and such like that. And he prepared a note for me because he's at a meeting. Right now, and it states that there's many
Do you have a
of
copy
you.
for everyone?
No, I don't.
That's what I was gonna say, I mean, is Jamie our coach still?
He's in a meeting.
I mean, that was my question, is Jamie our coach still for the baseball program? I mean, if he had information, he should have shared it with the whole board, not a board member. So I kind of take a little exception to that.
You done?
You
done?
Are you gonna start the meeting like this, Bill?
Well, no.
Well, let's
Okay,
hear
as many of you are aware that the current baseball field facility is in need of repair. We would like the blessing of the school board to explore the option of moving the baseball program to the city of Gilbert. The city of Gilbert has expressed interest upon upgrading their facilities to meet the needs of the varsity baseball program and to include the junior high program. Currently, the city of Gilbert houses the junior high program. The city offers locker rooms, concessions, heated indoor bathroom facilities, plenty of storage, on-site parking with a few steps within the field, and handicap accessibility. At the current time, we would like to gather information and see what the city of Gilbert has in mind. I would then report back to you, to the board, with any findings. Okay. I've been talking to the city of Gilbert, they're excited. I talked to the mayor, Kevin Klander. I've talked to Sam Lodiger, and they're all excited.
Who are these people?
We are this, Beth Miles is the mayor.
Right.
Sam Lodiger is the public works director, and Kevin Klander is the rec board director, as you per se, the rec board guys in charge of the facilities, the baseball facilities. They're all excited to have it moved to the Gilbert field.
Okay. And you said you met with them
Yes, I have.
under the auspices of what?
They came to me. They came to me and asked me if I would be interested, or it was collaborative. Well, it was brought up by Jamie. Then I talked to the city of Gilbert, and then basically we went from there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Rather than bringing it to the board?
I've never been able to speak. Mona, I put this on the agenda, and you never.
We're having a meeting.
Okay, all right.
And
I've asked.
all I'm saying is that you met with them prior to this. So you've already
Yes,
met with them,
yes.
reached out and
Yes, I have.
got information,
Yes, ma'am.
and what's the rest of it? There's got to be some dollars attached to this, or there's got to be...
The city of Gilbert is they're gonna discuss it, picking up the cost of it. Of the field improvements, moving the fence back, fixing the backstop, increasing the dugout size.
And then we use it for free?
Yeah, I think you have been, haven't you, over the years?
Well, I'm just asking.
I don't know that.
I didn't have the conversation.
I don't know.
If they put that much money into it, I'm just asking what the next, how they anticipate this growing from there. Is there, if they've talked about dollars attached, if there's a lease?
No, they haven't talked about dollars or nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I was hoping Jamie could have come here and attend, but he's in a meeting right now.
So what would he know that's different? Has he been meeting with them also?
I think he has, yes. I think he's been talking to somebody over in Gilbert. I think he's been talking to Mr. Thorson. Did he mention that to you, about the baseball field?
He's mentioned it.
He's mentioned it to Mr. I think he mentioned it to Mr. Carey as well.
He told me that, he asked me what the process would be, and I told him that we would go through the board.
So, where do we go from here? I mean, to get this going, where do we go? I mean,
Madam Chair, if I may add,
Yes.
I ran into Sam Lodiger about a week ago, and he told me that Mr. Addy unsolicited when I approached him about a baseball program, and Sam informed him, he told me he informed him of, is that this idea was talked about years ago with the board. And the financing of it is that the city and the school would pay for half of the improvements, and then there would be, it was implied that there would be some kind of a rental agreement on the other side of that. And like I said, that's just what I was told by the director.
But he's not an elected official, this Sam?
No, he's just the Public Works Director.
Okay.
I mean, so that being said, I mean, that's what I was told. And then the other side of that is, we have a baseball field. Why would we put money into somebody else's field instead of putting money into our own field? I guess would be the question. And I know the city of Gilbert, Bob Ponton told me directly, which is a city councilor on that, that he would love to get rid of the baseball field and the rec building because it's such a huge burden to the city of Gilbert. So I really don't see the present council having money or wanting to put money into those facilities. I mean, and he told me that right in council chambers about a year ago. There's been a movement in the city of Gilbert to close the library because of the expense it is to the city because of property tax debates. I mean, I really can't see the city of Gilbert coming on with any additional money to put into any infrastructure projects in the city. Not to mention if we forfeit our own property and we do rely or commit to property that isn't ours, we would be in no different than a position like we are with the Hippodrome, where we don't have a say and our rent keeps getting raised every year. We have the soccer fields in my Wabash. I believe we have a tennis program with Virginia. We have no control over our rent. It's dictated to us. And I could see that evolving with the city of Gilbert also because they're so cash strapped. I mean, and I'm a resident of Gilbert, so I'm intimately aware of the money problems they have. I'm a commercial property owner and a residential owner, so I just don't see that it being that rose-tinted glasses. It sounds great, but I don't even understand the process where we own our facility and we wouldn't explore maintaining that or upgrading that before we would forfeit it and pay to use somebody else's.
Well, based on the list that you provided of the items that it might include, fencing and dugouts and a number of things, I mean, this isn't going to be a cheap proposition. I wouldn't expect it to come under.
I think there'll be a lot of skin in the game to make it happen by the local people. I do believe that to be the case.
Explain to me what you mean.
Oh, there'll be a lot of volunteer work to move the fence. You know, to move the fence, there'll be a lot of volunteer work. I mean, I know that Minnesota Power and Lake Country Power have already expressed interest that if we decide we want to put a scoreboard up, they would supply the poles and the equipment to drill the holes, to put the poles up.
In exchange for?
Nothing. It's all gratis.
I don't see why we wouldn't look into it and see it as a possibility. I mean, because of our facilities here, if I remember correctly, they play up in the track, correct, baseball team. So I think the backstop is on the other side of the track. So it needs a lot of upgrades here too. I get what you're saying about the city owning the land or property or whatever, but there's no harm in looking at it as a possibility.
But I mean, let me ask you this, our field was, we had a board member and Coach Linseth come in unofficially to talk about how disrepaired our field was last year. And I think every board member and maybe the administration said, go out and research what it would cost to level out our infield, fix our mounds, address some of the deferred maintenance, and get back to us. To date, we've never officially heard any of that other than this independent, let's move it off of our property and go to someone else's. I mean, this is like, why don't you buy me a car and I'll rent it back to you? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
But there's
we have
money.
our own car, let's see what it costs to fix it. And I mean, I would say the first step would be there's no harm to see what it'd take to bring our field up to standard. And then if that exceeds some number that we're not comfortable with, then the next step would be to
Excuse me?
look into, you know,
I said it hasn't been done in 100 years, that field hasn't been touched.
All right, well, this is a committee meeting, so if you can keep the conversation to a minimum, it's very distracting.
Sorry.
I would say that you have $10,000 of Toyota field improvement money that hasn't been touched. I find it hard to believe that the school would even entertain fixing that field when the scoreboard had to be, the money had to be raised. You know, the sound system had to be raised privately.
so should we have not done the scoreboard?
It was we,
Uh-huh.
we.
The community.
This really isn't an exchange. Can we just conduct our
I'm just-
business and?
The school, I mean, the school board didn't, the old board didn't support it. I just, you
In
know,
support what?
the scoreboard.
We
Are you
didn't
talking about the
pass.
football scoreboard?
Yes,
All
yes.
right, because I thought we were talking about baseball.
No, I'm just saying funding an improvement when you didn't help even fund the scoreboard, even like given like the $10,000 of Toyota grant money that's sitting in the general fund or wherever it's sitting, that you wouldn't have given us money
Well,
to get
this isn't a
started.
conversation about the scoreboard right now. We're
Okay,
talking about
all right.
baseball, if we could get back to that,
Okay.
so that we
All right.
can all
So-
understand it.
So let's go back to the basics, I mean.
So, yes, please.
This board passed a $740,000 deficit budget, what, 2 weeks ago? There's $500,000 of royalty money in there, so really this current board,
So let's talk
This
about the
current
scoreboard,
board-
then the budget,
this
okay?
current board passed a $1.2 million deficit
Mona, now we're talking about
budget.
budget now. Let's get back to the,
So I would like to
Baseball.
I
know
was trying to
that
let him get to your
since
point
we
as I
passed the
was-
$1.2 million deficit budget, where is the improvements from a baseball field that we don't even own in? That's my question. I mean, I get, it sounds great and whatever, but, I mean, the point I don't think people understand is we can't get there until we free up some of our cash, which is burdened in other things. We can have all that stuff, but we have to make some decisions to save money to get there. I mean, I would love for a brand new sports facility, I mean, top notch, but we're not there yet. I mean, the money doesn't come from nowhere, you know?
Brandy said, listen, let's just explore it to see what the cost is gonna be, okay? Let's go back to that. I'm just saying, it's an idea. I guess the dollar amount hasn't been figured out yet. We'll figure it out, okay? We'll figure out what's gonna cost, if anything it costs the school.
Okay. And how do you propose that we proceed?
Well, what's it worth? Well, any ideas?
This was your
Okay,
proposal.
okay.
I was.
I mean, I can
Just
go back, I can
asking.
go back to the city, I'll go back to the city, I'll talk to the mayor and the councilman, or, you know, I'll try to get it put on the agenda. And see, and just see.
Yeah, we would have to bring this up at a regular meeting and authorize all of that to happen. I mean, I'm just asking
For
for
me to go talk to the city?
this to proceed at an
Oh,
official level,
oh,
yes.
okay. I mean, I can go talk to the city and just get some details, I guess.
I think the point is I think that Mona may be trying to allude to is that we as board members act as direction of the board and I mean, our administration and athletic directors and coaches are the ones that are in place to do things. I mean, we as representatives of the board shouldn't be talking to other municipal entities without direction.
Have you had this conversation with our athletic director?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, because I go through the chain of command, I go to the coach goes to athletic director goes to superintendent goes to you. And then you can, I guess, wherever it goes from there. I guess that's a chain, some sort of chain of command, I guess, that was followed. I would go from, you know, me as Bill Addy I would go to Sam Loniger, Sam would talk to, or I would go to Kevin Klander would go to Sam would go to the mayor, and then it would go to the council, you know.
More, if I may.
Yes.
The junior high baseball already is in Gilbert, that's
Right.
where they have their games, correct?
Yes, they
So
do play
if they
there.
already have their games over in Gilbert, what's the difference if we're adding the varsity? Possibly, potentially. That's what I'm saying, is if we're already using that, I don't know if, are they charging us fees for the junior high to be there? I mean, just to explore, what if they didn't charge us fees? What if they just welcomed us and wanted us to be there?
Yeah, and
I
I haven't heard
mean,
anyone say we're
so-
not doing it, we're just trying to flesh out, ask some questions and flesh it out a little bit. Because it sounds like there's already been some discussion, so I'm just trying to bring everybody else up to
But
speed.
what I'm saying is, you know,
Right.
I don't know, it seems like it's rolling into a whole lot of other conversations, like the budget and about scoreboards, and again, we're talking about the baseball field. So if I think it would be an idea to entertain, I guess, to look at if that would be a possibility. Because their facilities are better than the ones that are up here. And, you know, we're looking at all the one campus, two campus things. Do we need to be jumping into any decisions about, you know, what if we do a whole new athletic facility? And what if it's the cheapest route to go to Gilbert? Because they're already pretty good facilities, you just have to do something to the fence or whatever. I'm just saying, you know, as a board, I don't see why we wouldn't look at that as a possibility.
It's generally not the board's job to go out and gather all that information. We
Right.
have professionals
Right.
who can do that. We have an athletic director, we have coaching
But
staff,
as a-
people who are better versed in the needs of the teams that could be making some inquiries also.
I get that, but I guess my thought is, as a board, we are to give direction,
Right.
right? So that's what I'm saying, I don't see why we couldn't give direction to say, hey, why don't you check it out?
And that's fine, that would have to come up at a regular board meeting, put it on the agenda for the next one.
I get my only counter is, wouldn't it be prudent to explore our own property before we, you know, I mean, fix our own car before we buy someone else's?
I think that can be part of the
Right.
research that's done is what would it cost to bring this field up to status, whatever it requires, in addition to the data on using or upgrading the Gilbert side.
And I'll just say, I think it was inappropriate for a board member to do this without direction of the board. That's not necessarily how boards work.
So be it.
Right.
I mean, we're,
It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
What's the feelings of the board? I know you
I'm
walked in
sorry,
late.
I apologize, everyone.
We're just talking about the possibility of bringing the high school baseball program to the Gilbert facility. Bill has already had a couple of conversations, so he's got a pretty good handle on the needs and what would have to be changed. Sounds like it's a pretty big undertaking, but that there's already been some conversation about utilization of volunteers for some of the work. And you know, obviously, we're not there yet, but that's just sort of a short version. So at this point, it's basically just, are we interested in entertaining the thought and looking at the cost comparison between upgrading this field, perhaps, and that there's no guarantee anything will happen, versus whatever dollar figure we might have from Gilbert, and getting that fleshed out a little more thoroughly.
Yeah, what you just said makes sense to explore both of those alternatives to discuss what would be more feasible. And I'm assuming we're talking numbers on either of those alternatives. Either of those, whether it's Gilbert or updating.
Dollars?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to know where we are on either of them. It's, again, depending on what kind of numbers come back, and I wouldn't even want to venture a guess at this point.
Yeah.
It could be that nothing would happen. I mean, that's just another of those
It's
scenarios.
a possibility, and I guess it shows the lack of decisions, and this is just a point because it comes up in everything, that decisions that we continue to have to make are impacted on the lack of decisions that we're making in other areas. And so if we're talking about money that's being spent over in Eveleth or over in Gilbert, it would be really nice for us to focus on decisions going forward on what we're gonna do with our campuses.
And that was the
buildings.
original intent,
That's
is that
kind of
once
what
we had a handle on that, we'd have a better idea
Yeah,
of the budget process for these auxiliary things, which people forget, sports is still auxiliary to the to the focus of education. It's important, but it's a piece of that. So this is a little out of sequence, but I don't have a problem with at least
No,
looking at it.
yeah, and I think it
And those
will,
numbers could change dramatically before we got to the point of actually doing something. Because for one thing, this is not pertinent to this year anymore. It would be, we're talking a year away at least for the baseball program. I can't imagine that that could happen overnight.
Madam Chair, if I may, since Kelly wasn't here, I'd just like to tell her that, just because it's information is, last year we had a board member and a coach bring us independently up to the baseball field and show us the issues that there was with it. And at that point, unofficially, it was directed to go back and get us numbers, what it would take to kind of fix that field. And to the point is that never came. And now here we are talking about something else that is somewhere else. And to my point is I would like to look at that never came locally before we went and bought something else. So just, this has been like an ongoing year-plus conversation, just to your credit.
yeah, I know it came up.
I shared that with
at the same
everybody
time,
else.
and
Sherry,
we saw-
make copies of that for the board? Sure. So we don't misunderstand. Bill brought a document that he got from a baseball coach, so we'll have Jeff make copies for us. And I'm presuming, based on what you said, that Janie's in favor of researching this?
Yes.
And no one's gone to the athletic director with it, to your knowledge? Seems like,
I believe Jamie mentioned it to Mr. Thorson.
seems
Is that
like a
correct?
pretty important step if we're gonna be changing fields, that you should kind of be in the conversation.
You want a copy for the public? You have a copy for the public, Madam Chair?
I'm getting there.
Good.
Whoops.
Thank you.
Give it to them. Give it to them.
Yes, ma'am, I just thought if you wanted a copy, I'd hand you one. Thank you for the direction. I'll set these here and you guys can help yourselves. All right. So is it the consensus that we should bring it forward to the next meeting, put it on the agenda for further discussion and
I'm fine with that.
No problem.
because at this point, we don't even take action to make the direction to gather additional information, so.
I'd like to explore it, so.
All right. Item 2 on here is the football scoreboard. And that is a result of an email that we all received, I believe. Short version is, it says, I am seeking approval from the board to order and install the panel with Minnesota Power and Bridgestone, the two major donors to the project. So it sounds like there's been some promise of advertising made already, at least with those two firms.
Excuse me, do you have a copy for the public?
No, mine is all scribbled up, it would not be readable.
I believe it's public information.
I'm certain it is, and I'll try and get you a clean copy. So at this point, it's just a matter of if the board wants to go forward with advertising. I will tell you that we do have policies that govern this. We have an advertising policy. There's a booster club relationship policy. There's the acceptance of gifts. We don't engage with third parties to sell advertising on behalf of the school. And there was no agreement for advertising made at the time that we got a request for anyone to go out and raise money for a scoreboard. The original motion was made on April 11, 2016, to accept a donation of $16,255 from the football boosters for the purchase and installation of a new scoreboard for the stadium. Advertising wasn't discussed at that point. The enclosure is simply to accept the donation from the football boosters in the amount of $16,255 for the purchase of a new scoreboard. So there was nothing given to us at that time that included any discussion about advertising. And at this point, we don't advertise. We don't sell advertising.
How do we change that, Madam Chair? So Minnesota Power and Firestone both donated generously to our scoreboard. Okay,
To a boosters club,
Right.
yes,
okay?
to purchase the scoreboard. Okay, with, you know, with contingency that we put their advertising, Minnesota Power on Firestone. I don't know exactly what the minutes of the Booster Club meetings were, or what the school board had said about advertising. I do not have that information. I mean, I guess, what deal was cut between the school and the Booster Club?
There was no deal cut.
Or advertising deal?
The motion was, as I read it,
Did not,
which didn't include any mention of advertising, and any conversation that we had with Mr. Day regarding advertising, we never promised we would advertise. At one point, he even said that they weren't even sure that they would, and that he'd get back to us, and he never did.
maybe, can we have a person from the public stand up and talk about that? Matt Schoberg, maybe shed a little light on that?
Madam Chair, may I
Our
ask?
correspondence hasn't been with Mr. Schoberg.
May I ask something? May I ask?
Yes.
Address something? Mr. Addy, are you affiliated with the booster clubs at all for football boosters?
No, I'm not.
I just want to make sure that there's no conflict here, because I know you solicited donations, plus I've been told that you were an officer of the booster club, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. And that being said, I think I was at every single meeting with the football boosters throughout this process. And it wasn't the fact that we didn't support them or we wouldn't do it, it was the fact that we were talking about budget. And it wasn't a part of that. And Mr. Day, quite condescendingly, as everybody got the email saying how distasteful it was that the school district, forced the public to maintain our property. And many times he said that publicly, and he addressed the board and basically chastised us as the board for not doing what he thought we were supposed to be doing. At a certain point, he even spent public input and addressed the board that they as a booster decided not to sell advertisement in the form of raising funds for this. He did share that they were working on one substantial donor, that was part of their conversation if there was going to be an advertising packet, and he would get back to us. The board never commented, it was public input. He left, and the only thing that we ever received from them was what Mona just read in our board packet, was an enclosure for a scoreboard. And then on July 20th, we had another enclosure for accepting funds to upgrade the PA system. Up until February 22nd, I never ever heard of Minnesota Power or Bridgestone being two donors for the football boosters as a board member. I mean, public people might have, and people are affiliated with that. So it's been implied to me that the boosters guaranteed that they would that they would allow somebody to advertise on the scoreboard, and they had authorization from the school board, and that is emphatically false. I have no piece
I'm
of
sorry,
paper.
I can't sit here. You guys sat at a meeting, I was here, Mona said as long as it goes along with the advertising policy, the football boosters went right along with it. We dotted our i's, we crossed our t's. Even when we announced our sponsors, we made sure not to mention a bar. We said Margie Koivunen, we said nothing about Margie's Roosevelt Bar. Everything was followed, the school board policy was followed to a T.
You guys approved it.
You guys approved it, and I know Mrs. Putzel said, as long as it goes along with our advertising policy of the school board, and it did. And Dwight Day was told verbally that yes, the school board would, this is fine because the school board is paying for none of this. The school district paid for none of this scoreboard. It was all by the community. The community who voted you people in. I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and listen to this, that if I can take back my vote. But you know what, it's so frustrating that the school board won't allow something like a brand new scoreboard that was handed over to you people. It was handed over to the school district, and you're not appreciating it, and you're not appreciating all of the community support. The community raised money. It's all community money. It's none of the school district money. And you won't even let them put up a sign for it, for the money that was given to this district. I'm
And
sorry.
to be Bridgestone and Minnesota Power, I mean,
We've
two
heard-
huge, right, but that's what we're saying, that you aren't, and you are being condescending towards the boosters.
Absolutely.
Do not interrupt me.
I did.
And,
You were about to.
but you were thinking about it.
Maybe could I try and say 2 words or 2 minutes?
Why
to
don't
put
we
a
let them
different spin on it?
have their moment and then.
No, it's
yes,
not a
Mr.
moment.
Gilbert
It
will
is
be
the
happy.
fact that we came to you, we asked for funds from the board, which you said, it is not in the budget, we cannot do that, it is not in the budget. So we said, okay, well then as a booster club, if we go out and we, you know what I mean, do a plan to be able to, for the facilities there, to have a new scoreboard, to have a PA system, to have, and I understand that you think that sports are just, they're not important, and I get that, and I get that academics come first, but I guarantee you, if you just said, okay, we're done, we're not gonna have any sports, we're not gonna offer any sports, I can guarantee you that your enrollment would shrink to nothing,
All right,
and
well,
you
that
would
is
not
the
have a
conversation.
school, you know what I mean?
Mr.
So you
Schulberg,
have to
you
use it.
Michelle, please, if you could just let me if you can indulge me for just a couple of minutes, I can frame this a different way, hopefully. First, want to thank the board for letting us do it. Because it would have been awful easy just to say, we got to take care of the finances, we take care of the facilities, don't tell us how to take care of our facilities. And you didn't. You let us raise the money to do it. Now, in the process, when we came first to a full board session November of 15, and then to a subgroup like this, the idea came up that, hey, we're gonna be out looking for money, and we may people that are gonna contribute significant amounts may look for some recognition. I mean, it happens in all fundraising. And at that point, we were pointed towards the policy that the board has on advertising. And we talked about it, we discussed all different ways to do it. At the end of the day, we targeted one particular public utility who has a history of funding projects such like this, who has a huge stake in this community. And we approached them as a primary donor. In the process then, the board, it was reported to the football booster board on February 8th, and I wasn't at the meeting. I think only one of us was at the school board meeting prior to that, but it was reported that as long as it was appropriate, the board was okay with recognizing one particular major donor. Given that, I mean, we'd have to come back and get you to do it. And I wasn't there. I haven't watched the meeting. So given that, we continued to pursue the one particular donor who ended up coming up with a very significant donation. Oh, as significant as it was somewhat less than we had hoped to get from them. We also had another significant donation that was made with no promises. There weren't any promises anywhere other than what we were hearing was that the board was okay with recognizing one significant donor.
Can I ask just a quick question?
Sure, please.
When you say your booster club is hearing, may I ask by whom?
Well, we heard that from Dwight Day at our meeting that was immediately after the board meeting. And so we moved forward and we accepted the donation from the booster. From, well, it's Elite, it's Minnesota Power. They're very generous. And we talked to them and they said, you know, they just want some recognition personally. And again, and I apologize for the miscommunication, because when the scoreboard was ordered, frankly, I thought it was coming with the panel. Then the scoreboard came and I thought, well, the scoreboard's up, that's wonderful. The panel is out at Masaba Sign or somewhere for the artwork, and then that'll be installed when it's done. When it wasn't installed, as we got closer to football season, I started asking questions. And then we found out, well, the panel hadn't been ordered, but we had planned to order it. So that's where, and that's basically what happened.
Okay.
And the thought was, you know, to have, there's 4 spots underneath it, and with just Minnesota Power with one, we would just go Minnesota Power on all 4 spots. Minnesota Power is fine with 1 spot. And then the idea came up, well, we had 2 major donors, so maybe give them both 2 spots.
I will tell you that until we received the most recent email, I had never heard that either of them was a major donor to this. The communication was poor at best. Have you seen the communications that we've had with
No.
Mr. Day? He's been to, I believe, 2 meetings, possibly 3. Yeah, I think it was 3. And he was rude at those, and his email is equally so, which is unfortunate, but that aside,
And I have not seen the email either.
I will say that aside, the approval for advertising, obviously the intent is that it happened prior to the advertising.
Correct,
And
absolutely.
having third parties sell advertising on behalf of the school without us being in the loop on that
Right.
is what we're questioning.
I would say that, I mean, that it's not advertising as much as recognition. We did make the decision, I mean, and we were approached by several other entities that, you know, hey, we'd like to buy a spot on, you know, can we give you $5,000 to buy a spot on the board? And no, I mean, we were very careful to have someone, and we wouldn't consider anyone if there were any competitive issues. I mean, I would say our standards we went well beyond the stated policy of the board. because we're very sensitive to that.
Well, that and the fact that the boosters don't own the board.
Absolutely.
Once it was donated to the school, it becomes the school's
Sure.
responsibility and property. So any advertisements or donor recognition needs to come to the board. And we understand that's what we're dealing with now.
Yeah, well, we understand that
But-
too.
That's where the questions come up.
Absolutely.
So,
But there's no reason we shouldn't not allow these companies to be recognized. I mean, it's very tasteful advertising recognition per se.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, I just have a hard time, throughout this whole process of getting on the board and, whatever, communication has been an issue. Community buy-in has been an issue. And I think that, maybe somebody made an error, made a mistake about the advertising, the communication was miscombobulated, whatever the case may be, but we've got big companies that are willing to put money in, or invest in our school per se, and I think that puts a bad taste in the mouth of those companies. Those people also offer scholarships and other, funds for school stuff, and I would hate for us to not recognize them and suffer additional penalties per se because of that. That's what I have a hard time with.
Madam Chair, if I may, I agree with, I completely understand what you're saying. What does the policy dictate for this? I mean, the policy is kind of what should be guiding our practice and guiding what we're deciding. So what is the policy for advertisement for the district?
yeah, there's actually,
What would need to happen to change the policy? I'm coming from a community member as myself and a coach in the district and a coach in other districts. I've had games at a lot of fields, not just close by, but statewide, and it is commonplace to see, business names on scoreboards or billboards or outfield fences, and to make donations. And frankly, if our district is not in a position where we can do things like improve scoreboards or fields and things like that, well, I mean, to me, it only makes sense that we somehow make changes in our policies to allow donors, because we're still gonna have facility needs. And
it is covered, and no one is rejecting it. What we're saying is.
well, you guys sit here and chase your tail, and it's sickening.
She asked a question.
It's sickening.
I'm.
You guys can't make a damn decision. You sit here and you chase your tail. I don't blame Angie and those other people on the board for leaving.
It's.
I can't even sit here and listen to you guys. The way decisions are not, or pushed off, or, how many facility studies have been done in the last 15 years, money is just pissed down the drain. I can't even take it. Having 2 kids in the district and living across the street, I've about had it. This is sickening, the way you guys operate. I hope you should be ashamed of yourselves. And you are a piece of work. The way you contradict everybody and try to get under people's skin, that's terrible. You should feel ashamed for yourself.
To answer your question, it says donations which include or carry advertisements must be approved by the school board, which is what we're doing tonight. Or having the conversation.
But it's, okay,
That's how it's covered. It's 9:05.
thank you.
I mean, if I may, this conversation kind of way got out of control, as they all seem to, when emotion gets involved. My whole, hesitation here is, like I've shared, is that we didn't know anything until February 22nd, that the boosters promised some advertising. And then here we are, having a conversation. I've only been here for 2.5 years, but what I've gotten, why the district has been reluctant, if that's the best word to use, to allow advertising on school properties, because where do you draw the line? Rachel's Challenge was a grant. That was a huge impact in our, I mean, should that donor have been some, monument put up for them? Every day we get field trip grants. Should we have another monument for those people? Minnesota Power put up some money apparently for the scoreboard. Should we put a monument up for them? To what end, if one's not good enough for the other, is that gonna turn off the other person? You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't, sir.
I wasn't asking, hey, excuse me, I wasn't asking you. If you wanna say something.
Oh, you have a lot of sarcastic comments, and I respond to possibly a rhetorical question. My misunderstanding.
I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Chair
May I speak just for a moment here?
No,
So there's
please.
a lot of passion here, which is not our enemy. That
You
means
haven't,
people
you
care.
haven't been recognized. May I ask your
I
name?
am Captain Derek J.T. Melner, Commanding Officer of 2 units. I'm also the Defense Coordinator of the Eveleth Gilbert Senior High School football team. I work with our young people. They're fine young people. I see their aspirations. I see their dreams. They have willpower. I was one of them. Graduate from 2004, Eveleth Gilbert. Proud graduate. I care about this community. My uncle is Dwight Day. He is a pillar of our community. He's involved in several organizations. I'm not proud of how there's been nagging back and forth or the name calling from either side. Dwight is a wonderful man, and he is not chastised. I've known him since I was 5, since I can remember. He has not chastised anyone in my entire life, and I am around him a lot. Now, I apologize for the rudeness that you may have interpreted in his email, but I believe that I can speak on his behalf, that he cares a great deal about this community. Specifically, Eveleth and Gilbert. His 3 kids that have gone through, one that is a senior this year, about to graduate. His oldest son is currently sporting Eveleth Gilbert pride at Crookston as a kicker, first scholarship athlete that I recall receiving since I was an NCAA recipient for a scholarship. His youngest daughter is a sophomore. They're all great people, great young people. It's a great family. It's okay what happened, transpired tonight. It truly is. It's passion, it's heart, it's love. This is a precedence, in my opinion, this is a precedence. In my short time here, I've only been coaching for 4 years, there has been an outstanding, overwhelming amount of gifts from the community in support of the program. And this Boosters has most likely gathered the most funds we've received in a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is outstanding gifts we have been able to fundraise. So this is a precedence in that regard, and secondly, the policy, it may never have encountered this issue, and because it's a lot of hard work. I'm not part of the Boosters. Every one of these people that have passionately spoken, they were part of that Boosters, and they worked hard. And somewhere in there probably was a great deal of miscommunication on my uncle's end, or some of these members' ends. But I'm telling you, it's only because they put a lot of time in it, that they care. And I apologize.
You understand that we haven't rejected this?
I understand this, and I apologize for any name calling on their behalf. Because these are good people, they're just heavily invested. And that's all I have to say.
Was there
But
someone else that wanted to address?
Chair Putzel, thank you. Most of you know.
Again, may we have your name?
Yes, most of you know me, but Mark Mewich, I live in town here. I am a volunteer assistant coach for the football team, as well as most of you know what I do professionally for a living, namely being a lawyer. And I believe, based on the current situation, that both the district and the Booster Club are exposed. Should Minnesota Power want to attempt to recapture the $15,000, both the Booster Club and the district are exposed to liability under a legal theory known as promissory estoppel. Now, would they exercise that? I don't know. I guess only Mr. Hodnick would know that, and in consultation with his counsel.
And if we aren't able to recognize Minnesota Power properly, my recommendation certainly as the president of the Booster organization would be to give them their money back. So we wouldn't go down that.
But again, you understand this is only a committee meeting where we're
Yeah,
determining
absolutely.
what needs to go
Oh,
forward.
yeah, no, I
one
was
has rejected
saying that,
anything.
we aren't
Okay.
gonna go, I mean, it's,
No one has rejected anything, we just need to be sure that we're operating within the guidelines of our policies also. And at this point, our concern was that there was a donation with the exchange of a recognition or an advertisement that we knew nothing about. In order to go forward, we need to take action. We don't take it at a committee meeting, we're simply having the conversation.
yes, that was based on a report that the boosters got before we entered into the grant contract.
Right. We will also put this on the next agenda.
Thank
And our
you,
committee meeting is adjourned.
thank you all.